I am 6. I'm a top 500 tank player who loves playing Hog a lot, so that's me.
Hi, my name is Booger. I'm the silly guy that got GM first on Life Rework, and before that, I was, before that, I was the Winston player. But now I'm kind of playing mostly support, but also very well versed in tank gameplay, obviously.
And I'm Alec, lead hero designer on Overwatch 2.
Nice.
Also love
Sweet.
playing Roadhog as well.
You love playing.
Oh, Roadhog
Yeah.
enjoyer.
Love Hog.
Sweet. Nice. Okay. All right. So we should get this started. I guess I can start this off with the first question, right? So tell us about the rework. What are some of the goals that you wanted to hit with this rework?
Yeah, I think overall, the rework started in a different place than where it ended up, right? So probably started some very early ideation back in February/March. So when we did some early playtesting of some things. And at that point in time, the original goals that we talked about on the team were, hey, more focus on helping allies, reduce the pains of the hook combo and the one shot and everything. So very these broad sort of things. Eventually, those shifted a little bit. We want to increase his ability to protect his team still, but we were recognizing we wanted to do that by claiming more space on the battlefield in particular, maintain his overall identity and play style, and then move some of his power around so it isn't so tied into the one shot, but it wasn't necessarily about reducing the pains as much. I think, when we're talking about the Roadhog rework, like the context we're looking at is like last December, last January, when Roadhog was one of the more popular tanks in the game, and there's a lot of outcry there about his one shot in particular and so combo. If we look at it, we don't think it's necessarily something that had to like go away completely. It's just something that we can move some of the power around and make it and you'll see that with sort of the ability Pigpen that we're going to talk about today, where you can still do that. It's just a little bit different the way you may be achieving that. And even on live, you can still do it. It's just a bit more a little bit more convoluted about the steps to achieve the hook one shot, the hook combo, as we like to call it.
Right on. Okay.
All right.
Well, I don't think a lot of the viewers were caught up to speed with the patch notes. So, do you want to go like in depth on what got changed, and just pretty much talk about the rework, because I'm pretty sure the patch notes didn't get public, so not a whole lot of people are too aware of it.
Patch notes.
Yeah, those are gonna go live tomorrow, actually, I believe.
Oh,
okay, so let's do a general overview. Your main three things here. We'll talk about the things that are changing, then we'll talk about the new thing last. But the first thing here is scrap gun. So that's becoming just your primary fire. So the right click is gone entirely. And now with that primary fire, it's this volley of shotgun projectiles that are now at the core of it. There's these 4 large projectiles. So what this effectively does, and it makes Roadhog a lot better at range in particular. It's not necessarily like he's not a sniping character by any means. He's not playing that sort of range, but this allows him to be much more effective at poking, things like that. These are these chunky, large projectiles in the middle of this volley that actually they'll each deal 15 damage there. So it's a shotgun blast, sort of with some of the old right click in the middle of it. One of the things we recognized throughout development here was there was just a lot of space that was being eaten away by both of these on left click and right click. And we thought by making some sort of combination fire that we have today, it actually allows Roadhog to play the same way as he did before in a lot of ways. He doesn't have necessarily the surprise damage burst that he had with his old right click. But he's much more effective, much more consistent with his damage, but with this new primary fire.
right on.
Then moving on after that, Take a Breather saw some big changes. So that's moving from the E actually to the right click. So it's one of the things we don't necessarily love doing a lot of changes in control scheme, but we found this is the rework. This is the time to do it if we're ever going to do it. And this is now a resource, so it operates similar to D.Va's defense matrix. So now you have this bar of resources you're able to use Take a Breather on. It takes 12 seconds to get the whole thing back to recharge, but if you actually use all of it, you're getting 450 health over 3 seconds. right? There's some tweaks there too. Damage reduction's down a little bit, but you can use this very flexible. There's a lot of flexibility here. You can use this whenever you want. You can pop it in for a second, take it off. You'll have a second cooldown before you can use it again. So this allows Roadhog to be very flexible with when he's tanking and how much of the ability he needs to use at one time in particular. It's probably the main way he's actually increasing his effectiveness as a tank overall. And then finally, his new ability, Pigpen. So Pigpen is a trap that Roadhog throws down onto the ground. It will sink into the ground just like one of Junkrat's traps, right? But when someone gets near it, it pops them up a little bit into the air, and then does some damage on the trigger, so it's 60 damage, and then does a slow in an area. So there's a big area there. It's about almost 4-meter radius, where they'll apply a slow and deal damage over time. It's 90 damage over 3 seconds, and slows enemies up to slows enemies for 40%. So this is something you can destroy if you see it beforehand, like Junkrat's trap. But once it's active, it isn't able to be destroyed, and it's 3 seconds active there on the field with the slow being applied. So this ability in particular was something that we added. So this allows Roadhog to take more space, and it also allows him to deal more damage with his hook ability, because you can actually drag people over the Pigpen. It'll deal damage there. Then you're able to get the combo's a lot more effective. This is the way we think he's going to be able to just sometimes even protect allies, throw the trap down for them. They can have a little bit of protection while they're in an area that they may be more vulnerable in. So this one's been a lot of fun. It's actually one of the things that came a bit later into the rework experience that we were looking at. So I think that those are the main things that are changing here.
Yeah. I want to ask, if you don't mind, Six, I'm going to ask about the Pigpen.
Go ahead.
We both had the same question, basically. So the question is, how will Pigpen interact with heroes that have movement abilities? For example, Genji Dash or Winston Leap. Will they be able to escape the trap? Or is it going to work like Grav, where they're stuck and they can't escape? They're forced to be in there.
They're just slowed. So they can still use their movement abilities. They're not mobility locked in that way. We tried some early versions that had mobility lock. I think it's one of the things we're not looking to add more hindered effects in the game at the moment. We think this soft CC, if that burns the mobility from them, that's okay. But remember, they also get popped up initially. Roadhog has an opportunity then to hook them and things like that when they do trigger the trap. So yeah, but no, it does not hinder them.
Do they move towards the center? Like, is it like kind of like you throw the projectile? It just slows them. That's it.
No, it just slows them for 40%.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so how do you throw it? Is it like Junkrat? Does he like throw it far, or is it like he places it like right in front of himself? Like, what's the the throwing range on that?
Yeah, it's similar to Junkrat in that sense.
Okay.
You can we can throw it, look up, we'll get a little bit more range on it. There's
Okay.
iterations where we had you can throw it really far, but we didn't want necessarily when people they hooked in. You can kind of throw it behind them, but there was some where Roadhog was like throwing it way behind them and just kind of catching them from too far away. It didn't necessarily incentivize the gameplay we're looking for. But Pigpen in particular went through a lot of iteration. I think one of the first ones we had here where we were messing around with was called caltrops at one point in time. So imagine instead of one trap, there was a lot of mini little traps, say like 10 to 12 of them, all in an area. And they did similar things where it would deal some damage and slow, but there was a lot of cleanup going on from the enemy side, right? You just had to get rid of all these little caltrops. Yeah, exactly. I think it made a lot of sense to have like all these little scrap, scattered around the battlefield that Roadhog would put out. But it was just one of those things. I think it was right around we were iterating on this ability right around when Lifeweaver came out. There's just a lot of deployables and things like that were being added to the game, and we just wanted to shrink it down to one entity in particular.
I have an additional question for the, it's a projectile, right? Can you eat it with Diva or deflect it?
Yes.
Both?
Yes, I believe so. I'll have to double check on the deflect there. I'm pretty sure you can eat it, yeah.
All right.
I don't think you're able to eat Junkrat's trap, if I'm not mistaken, or deflect it.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking. You can't deflect or eat it, but maybe Roadhog, projectile works differently.
I'll have to double check on that interaction in particular.
Right on. Okay, so how do you expect like players to use this trap? Like realistically, do you expect them to like put it away from the team, or like with Hog, or how do you expect players to use this?
So a lot of times, what we'll see, you can in tight chokes, it can be fairly effective. If you don't necessarily want to play it like directly in sight though. Kind of want to play it maybe into the corner of a choke, right? So when people come around the corner, that's when they hit it. Also, if you are Roadhog, you can hook them in and then turn enemies into the trap, which can be quite effective. We've seen a lot of that type of gameplay. You can see it sometimes where you throw it near one of your supports perhaps and try to give them a little bit of area. But a lot of times what we're seeing and what we find effective is place it in areas where Roadhog knows where it is. He can get the hook combo, turn into it, and also it can be something that the enemies don't see coming, right? So it's something that is placed to the corner, something right around a corner where they'll walk into it a bit more.
Okay, right on.
Yeah.
So when you guys
I
were
wanna
like,
ask one thing,
okay,
sorry, Six.
go ahead.
So there's the pig pen, so it's kind of like Junkrat Trap. So do we assume that it has HP? And if it does have HP, how much HP does it have?
Yeah, it has HP. It's 100 HP.
Can you break it after it traps people, or
No.
only before? Okay.
Only before. We had some iterations where you could break it after, but as we were looking at sort of like even the current game state, there's a lot of things you're shooting at right now at the moment that aren't necessarily enemies, and we didn't want to increase that even more by having something that you can shoot it before, but then you always felt like you had to shoot it afterwards too. Just want to eliminate that.
Okay. Okay. So when you guys were working on the rework, there were like a lot of theories floating around that he was gonna get like a shield or like some sort of ability, like Hog's gonna like be able to throw his hook and grapple. So what made you guys like settle on a trap ability?
Well, we tried a lot of things, right? I think even there with the hook in particular, there was a bunch of iterations. There was one iteration where you actually did hook someone in and then you just held them there for I think like a second and a half, but it didn't really fit Overwatch's fast-paced gameplay, right? I think there are other abilities. We tried a ton of passives. That was something we really wanted to look at. That's where we first identified space, where it was like, oh, maybe he has this threatening aura, or maybe he can deal damage around him in some way, or maybe teammates are taking less damage because Roadhog is their bodyguard and he's nearby them, right? So we tried a ton of stuff, but really what turned the corner for us was, I think initially this rework was looking at getting away a little bit from Roadhog's identity. We were getting away from the combo, getting away from some of the way he played previously, but I think we all looked around like, this is the thing we love about Roadhog. This is the thing that I think people that play Roadhog a lot, this is the thing they love about Roadhog. So we didn't want to necessarily shoehorn Roadhog into, this broad goal of he must be a tank in Overwatch 2 terms and must play this way, right? He must have an ability that protects his team in this way. He must have this other thing. And then you get into like this build blocks area where it's like all the tanks could, kind of feel the same. Right. So Roadhog in particular, like how does he tank in our game, and how could we better equip him to do that and can play into his strengths a little bit? So actually, after trying a ton of stuff, we did something really simple. We put a slow on the melee at one point in time, and we're like, okay, we kind of like how the slow plays a little bit with the rest of his kit. We kind of like and then we went to the cow traps, and we had a pig pen, and it's sort of this thing. But like we went really wide early on. I think we did even. Yeah, I think there's a lot of theories about like a butt slam and things like that. We actually did something where Roadhog was like jumping into the air and slamming down.
No way.
It just felt a little.
Kept it.
It felt a little odd overall to like how he was playing and added like complexity to his kit, and we just wanted to look at okay, how do people want to play Roadhog, and then how can we just make that even a better experience? How can we make that tanking as Roadhog in Overwatch 2 more flexible than it was?
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, when I first heard about like Roadhog was getting a rework, I won't lie, I got a little nervous. But as time went on and I learned more about it, I was like, yeah, no, I mean, keeping his core identity, keeping the gameplay, all sounds great, and I think you guys actually pulled it off. So, props to you guys. Okay, so my next question would be like, if I'm like a soldier 76, right, and I walk into Pigpen, how do I know that I got activated? How do I know I'm like in trouble?
Yeah.
Like, what's
So
the player feedback?
a lot of that's going to be, sound and visual cues, right? So there are unique sounds that play like on the trigger and on the slow. The slow itself is this area that's actually being electrified. So it's kind of like the fantasy is that there's these like sort of, if you ever go to maybe a LAN or something and you see a bunch of wires or just like kind of in a bad power strip, right? It's kind of like these frayed wires everywhere that have these electrical current going. Um, and so the trap will play, and then you'll see actually on your screen the generalized slow effects too. You'll see that VFX on your 1P, and you also see the damage coming from the bottom. So we did some things to just make sure that the sound and the VFX are sort of giving you that information. The trap also is sunken beforehand, but then when it triggers, it raises up and releases these wires, and then so the area actually expands. There's this kind of big trigger moment that happens that our VFX team did a great job, and modeling team, animation, everybody did a great job on that.
Right on, right on. Or you have a question?
No, I'm pretty sure you have another question unless you asked about Pigpen, and then afterwards, I think we should go back into the core gameplay of Roadhog. Do you have any more questions for Pigpen?
Let me see. Oh, right. So does Pigpen's cooldown, does it start ticking like when the ability is placed, or does like the cooldown start after it gets like triggered or destroyed?
Yeah, so right after you throw it, the cooldown starts. That's a 12-second cooldown. So you could have one out and have one ready to go like right after it too.
Wow. Okay. That's big.
Does it trap? It traps multiple people, right? Or one?
Anyone in the area. So
Okay.
the trigger radius is smaller than the actual damage radius. So the trigger radius is going to be 2 meters, but then once it expands, once the trap's been triggered, that's going to be 3.8 meters at that point. So anyone who's in
Right.
it is getting slowed and damaged. If you're in the trigger radius when it first pops up, you'll take the initial 60 though too.
All right. I do want to ask a few questions outside of Pigpen, just more about Roadhog. For example, if people are gonna ask, is he still gonna be able to pull off his, hook one shot, hook melee one shot, or whatever? Is that still gonna be a threat? Are people gonna be worried about it, or or are you gonna have to play around Pigpen a little bit more to actually pull off consistent one shots?
You'll still be able to do it in the way you were doing previously, where you kind of, you have to shoot, walk forward, and things like that in that melee. But what you'll be able to do with Pigpen in particular, it would just make that a lot easier. You'll be able to just hook and shoot, depending on like how much HP the character may have, and if you get the headshot right. So you'll kind of have these moments where hooking through a Pigpen feels like the old combo, in terms of the ease of use there.
All right. Wait. Just one more. And then your turn. I think a lot of Roadhog players are probably afraid that you might push them away, because every time every time the dev team announces a rework, a lot of people, are really against it. So I was wondering, are you worried yourself that you might push away a lot of old school Roadhog players by changing his core playstyle? And do you think you've changed his core playstyle, or do you think you've managed to maintain it pretty well?
Well, overall, I'd say not worried about that in particular. I think there are some things, that we recognize that, not everything, there's some things that got lost, right? I think you lost a little bit of the nuance of the right click in particular and that spacing element that we had previously at Roadhog's Kit, where you try to get the right click to explode right where they are and get all that burst of damage. But overall, I think Roadhog is still playing fairly similar in the sense of, he is a tank that wants to maybe, go on his own a little bit, is a tank that can protect himself, is a tank that can achieve kills and secure those kills more easily than some other tanks might. So overall, if you like that sort of that part about Roadhog, that's still intact. That was something we wanted to make sure was intact overall.
All right.
All right. So how does the rework primary fire like feel mid fight? Like, so it went from 25 pellets to 16 pellets with 4 larger shrapnel. So how does that feel mid team fight when you're not using Pigpen and you're not using your hook?
It's chunky. I think it's quite chunky. I think Roadhog will still be dealing a lot of damage. It's one of those things where some of the things we were kind of worried about at one point. So actually, there's a decrease in the critical hit multiplier now. So that's what goes from 2 to 1.5 on the primary fire in particular. Roadhog was dealing a lot of damage overall. So this one feels good though. I think you'll see mid fight. You don't find a ton of difference compared to using old primary. Like it depends on the range. But once you're starting to poke or you're starting to even do things like try to take out a turret and stuff like that, it feels a lot more consistent, a lot more reliable.
Okay, so it's kind of like mixing between the old primary fire and the secondary fire, pretty much. Right on.
Yeah, that was we kind of came in one day and we're like, okay, there's not enough design space here. We were doing a bunch of things. We're layering things on top of Roadhog, like I said, like passives and things like that. Whereas like something had to give, and I think the opportunity was there to really look at the primary and secondary fire and feel like if we could marry them in a way that achieved Roadhog's identity still and kept that all intact, I think that was our goal. And I think overall there, as I said, you lose a little bit of the spacing gameplay he had previously, but you still have that with the hook and the pig pen and everything.
Speaking of the primary fire, are his shots now hit scan projectile, a mix of both, or just hit scan or just projectile?
Projectiles.
Or projectiles like before. It's just basically
Yeah.
the two mouse 1, mouse 2 combined. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So how does the reworked primary fire feel during the hook combo, like with and without pigpen?
Sorry, how does the primary fire feel with the hook, but with and without pigpen?
Yes.
The question, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. It feels pretty great. I think you still hook a tracer in and shoot the tracer. You're going to be doing quite well there, right? With pigpen though, it feels like you can actually get the combo off fairly reliably.
So what? You throw the pig pen under your feet, you hook them, and then you
sometimes,
shoot them.
yeah. I mean, they might be able to see that, right? I mean, it's like a gray / metallic silver dome that they could shoot. So they do see it in the open like that. So a lot of times, like I said, Roadhog will be kind of guarding a choke or something, or at least like strafing between a choke, right? And then Pigpen will be maybe to his right there, right around the corner, and try to hook in, turn, and then fire, and they'll secure the kill.
Oh.
Yeah. We see we've seen a lot of that in our playtests. I think even some of the playtests we did with y'all, we saw that was some of the ways you were using Pigpen as well.
Right on. Okay, so was like Roadhog's secondary fire like always the main thing on like the chopping block?
I don't think it started there. I think initially we were actually on board with complicating Roadhog a bit more. I think we looked at his kit overall. We felt there was room for complexity in the old kit, and we could take some of that. So passives were really the first thing we looked at. Layering something on top of him, whether that be a passive that did damage reduction for his allies, whether that be something where maybe we're looking at passive similar to Malga's passive, where he could kind of keep himself up a little bit more. There was one where we wanted Roadhog to be like scary when he was low health because we were playing this whole ferocity element of him, sort of being this big threatening presence, and was like, okay, Roadhog's low health, has more attack speed, right? There was one we played with, it was like a vendetta / revenge angle where if one of your teammates died, Roadhog could see where that killer was, like on the enemy team, and he could like go hunt them down. And so it's like Roadhog was like, "I'm gonna get you, right? Like, I'm gonna come and hook you." Roadhog with walls is really scary, by the way.
Wow.
So it probably wasn't
I like that idea
all the time. It was
Sounds fun.
It was fun. It was fun. Definitely fun. But so we started in that space of, well, there's room here for complexity, and I think as the game continues to mature and continues to evolve, naturally some things might get it's slightly more complex. But I think it really came down to, let's break down some of the elements here. How much use and effectiveness are they getting within the kit itself in terms of the overall design space for what our goals are here? And at that point we were like, okay, we wanted a new ability, a button that you actually press, and we had to look at primary fires, secondary fires, sort of things that weren't by themselves individually taking up as much, being as effective as we wanted them design wise, but in their combination they were. So we tried to marry them in that way.
So
Okay.
okay, but you about Roadhog, for example, he's pretty unique in the sense that he's very solo oriented, right?
Hmm.
Every time people play him, they flank around. So with
Yeah.
this rework, was your plan to, make him more team oriented in a way, or to keep him in the same niche where he can still flank around, still get the kills, and not really care about the team? Because when you play with the team with Roadhog, you might suffer a lot. You usually want to flank, you want to get some kills, make some opportunities for your team. So, what's the main thought process behind this?
Yeah. We started in a place where we wanted to bring Roadhog more in line with the team, or encourage his allies to play more with him or something, right? And that was like a lot of these like AoE effect passive things were coming into play. And when we looked at Take a Breather, that was sort of the ability we wanted to first look at to, okay, this is the ability that's going to be able to help your team more, right? It just kind of made sense. It was the healing ability. It's something we felt there was more space on. So one of the first things we did, it was like our third playtest maybe last spring, was we did bonus received healing on Take a Breather. And that, we're like, oh, we just like this, Roadhog suffering, we just brought that in. So we brought that into live, and it made him slightly more effective.
Yeah, not
Slightly, just slightly.
yeah, just a little
It
bit.
wasn't necessarily doing everything we wanted to. Definitely just made him. He was able to stay alive, but wasn't necessarily helping his team more. And then we tried some things where it would block healing for enemies, but it was really confusing on when to use it, things like that, and visually not very clear. And then we actually, for a long time, we had healing allies in an AoE. So we had multiple playtests with this because we were really trying to determine its effectiveness. It was one of those things where we would have Roadhog players of fairly similar skill, and they might get similar healing at the end of the match, but one of them would have 60% of their healing was to allies, and the other one had 10%. It was just such a big difference in how people look at it. And we did even more playtests with external users as well, and it was just never front of mind. It was something that was like, oh, this could be nice. It was never at the front of a Roadhog player's mind to use it that way. And if it wasn't at if it wasn't already there, it was actually something that was really scary, because we knew that AoE healing is just going to be something that's going to, with the right meta, is going to sort of take over. It's going to make things feel like they're already not dying on live at some point. There already is this great level of sustain, and bringing in another hero that could do that, that wasn't something we wanted to go down that path with. So we had that for a while. I think we showed it to a bunch of creators as well. And just at the end of the day, we had some playtests where it's like, no one's actually taking advantage of this, and it has a big risk factor. So that's when we pivoted Take a Breather to be something that was a lot more flexible of what we have now. So Roadhog can still do everything he wants to do, still flank in the way he wants to flank. But if he wants to protect his team by utilizing Take a Breather and like taking damage and be able to, get back up and heal that damage and have that damage resistance, he has a lot more time to do that. He can be a lot more flexible in that. So it's not necessarily like Roadhog has this new ability that immediately makes him play with his teammates more. It's just he's a lot more flexible in how he can protect his teammates if he chooses to do so. Right.
Okay. I think one of the questions I want to ask was about, I guess, sort of like Take a Breather. So Roadhog is like sort of similar to like Mauga, where like, especially when it comes to their counters, Anna will counter Mauga and Hogs. So with her biotic grenade, she can just anti them, deny their self heals. Are there any plans to reduce like anti-nade's effectiveness against tanks?
We've talked about it. We've talked about it quite a bit on the team. One of the things we'll see if season 8 launch. We'll see if the Roadhog rework that comes out tomorrow as well. Sort of Anna's effectiveness there. One of the things we did recently was actually supposed to be coupled with the Roadhog rework and Malga's release, leading up to Malga's release, was the Zen changes, right? The Zen changes in particular, we made those because we knew we were having back to back, a Roadhog Rework and a Malga launch, where it's like these big body tanks. Can we at least give them some way of protecting themselves a bit better? Well, I think a lot of tanks have a hard time doing this, and at least they have a barrier or something that can get in the way there. Where these two, they had to just run away, and by the time they ran away, they come back, and it's like, well, the orb's back there, it's back on me. So the Zen changes came in. That was something we wanted to look at and address and see how that felt. I think we'll take a look at both of them against Ana in particular and see if we need to make further changes there. But one thing with this take a breather compared to the previous iteration of it is that it doesn't kill the entire ability. It lasts the time for the duration, right? But you can just stop, right? You can use a little bit. Ana nades you. You might still have your whole resource available, right? You might only use half a second on it, then you still have the resource meter there. So when her effect wears off, you can actually immediately use it afterwards. And same with Roadhog gets CC'd or something like that. It's not killing the entire ability itself and going the whole thing on cooldown, right?
Yeah, I gotta say that's one of the things that was like kind of annoying about old Take a Breather. I remember so many times back in Overwatch 1 when Brig got released, I was like low HP, she's just flailing me, and then I just can't use my breather because I just know I'm gonna get stunned out of it and then I'm just gonna die. So it just being on like a resource just really helps with that. So I imagine it's also really good against anti-net as well. So yeah, I'm excited for it.
Speaking of Roadhog counters and in general, for example, there's a high probability, of course, with anti-nade and sleep, and none of the counters that Roadhog has are really getting changed much, or like he doesn't get anything that helps him against them, right? So, are you worried that maybe even after the Roadhog rework, he's still gonna be underwhelming and he's still gonna suffer from the same counters that he did before? And it won't allow him to do anything like before.
I think those counters are, yeah, they might still be present, but they're softer. As we just talked about with Take a Breather in
Yeah.
particular, like not canceling the whole ability. So you say you're playing against a character like Arisa, she's a spear against you. It's not necessarily going to kill your cooldown in that way, right? So I think while those might still be present, they're definitely softer. And when we're looking at doing reworks, I think as we showed with the summer rework in particular, it's about creating these building blocks for the hero overall, right? It's about having these abilities that are present that we know we can inject some power into, but we know these are the right elements of the hero that can actually allow them to perform the gameplay that we want them to perform and be effective, right? So Sunburn, we looked at, hey, the ult wasn't performing, and we're still looking at the ult, right? If there's an element here with Roadhog's new kit that you're not getting a lot of value out of, I think there's an opportunity there. There's numbers. It's a lot of knobs we can tune there to buff if we need to.
Have you thought about, for example, Ana, or not Ana, just anti-nade in general, anti-heal in general, not being 100%, but being like 70%. So tanks can still heal themselves, or maybe just for tanks, in general. So, for example, if a tank gets antied, maybe it's 70%, so 100. I know it's not exactly about Roadhog, but we started speaking about it, and I was wondering.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we talk about. It's really about clarity, right? And how we message things in the game, whether it be through the UI and everything. So we would look at it, but be a big step, a big change. I think you still see people trying to go through it sometimes anyway.
Yeah.
So I think that there are some things we could look at there. I think duration would be the first thing we'd look at, though, in particular for
Alright.
tanks.
All right.
All
Do you have
right.
any question 6?
I have a couple more. So Diva's time to refill is about 6 seconds, right? And Hog is 12 seconds. 12 seconds is a pretty long time, and it's gonna lead to like a lot of downtime for breather. Could we ever see like a shift in more take a breather uptime? But adjusting the numbers, maybe you can nerf the heals and upping the damage reduction above 30%. Anything like that?
Yeah, there are knobs here. I think this version in particular, we're trying to be in a place where Roadhog doesn't necessarily feel unkillable, right? I think once you get up to say 50% and maybe 10 seconds, you feel like this thing that's always present, and you don't feel like you just shoot Roadhog. You're like, what do I do about this, right? So we'll continue to look how he performs, look at his healing output and what compared to live and where that ends up. And if things need to go up a little bit, I think there's certainly room there with what we're launching. Yeah. But I think when we think about overall healing and damage reduction in particular, it's something we need to be a little careful about on first launch, even though overall we want our heroes, our reworks, to be on the safe side of strong. That's an element that we might be a little bit more conservative with.
Right on. I do think that the it going to a resource and being a 1 second cooldown is like a huge buff. But I do think giving it more heals will just kind of like enforce Ana versus Hog even more than it is currently, like now, which I didn't think it was possible. But yeah, I think I don't know. I think focusing more on heals with the ability will just kind of like enforce the enemy team to get, want to pick something that can deny the heals. So that was like my only concern about the take a breather.
My concern is, what if he's just unkillable now with the new take a breather? I don't know. Obviously, a lot of people are probably gonna be worried about it. We're gonna see tomorrow, of course, but it is at the back of my mind, the back of my head, thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing we learned recently was even like with Malga, right? Malga's coming in season 8. We are tuning up some of his survivability numbers too, coming into the game, because we did get a great look at that the preview weekend and how people were performing and sort of where he was in the cast. I think Roadhog will be doing the same sort of evaluation, like starting tomorrow. Like how are people actually performing with the hero? Are they able to keep themselves alive? Does his survivability need to go up a little bit?
Okay. I think the last question that I have written down is about the primary fire. So there's less pellets overall, right? 16 pellets and then 4 large shrapnels. Has the spread changed at all since there is less pellets?
It's like a tiny bit, but overall the same space it covers is relatively the same. It's still quite a bit. I think what you'll notice the most is sort of the spread on the 4 core in the middle there. It's relatively pretty tight, even at range. So it's not something that spreads out very quickly. Those 4 large shots, so you actually be able to hit things at a relatively mid to medium to like let's just say medium range usually.
Okay, I see.
Is he gonna be available right away in comp tomorrow? Or
Yes.
All right.
So with our reworks in particular, we do just want those to go in immediately. I think when we're looking at keeping heroes out of comp, it's really about giving players time with the battle pass and everything to have the opportunity to acquire that hero. I think with Malga, we already kind of got some of that data. We got the preview server. We probably didn't feel comfortable about releasing Malga earlier in comp, but it's really about giving players the time to get to the level they need to on the battle pass and unlock the hero, and then feel like they go into comp and have the opportunity to play the hero. And if you go into comp and don't have the hero, that can feel really bad, right?
It's okay. Just people are asking questions which are important.
Yeah.
Is the Hog range of his primary the same, and is his ammo the same?
It's still 6. Yes.
It's still 6, but is the range, because right click and left click, I think they have a different range. I'm not sure. I think so. How is it, or does each right click and left click maintain their own respective ranges now that they're combined? Do you understand what I mean?
I believe all the projectiles go the same range.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. What about fall off?
It's projectiles. So
yeah. Oh, there's no fall off. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right.
Oh wait, I thought I had projectiles the whole time. I swear, I remember back in Overwatch 1 they released or there was like some sort of bug fix where they like fixed the projectile like fall off damage. I didn't know it had no fall off.
Projectiles don't have fall off. No. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. You have any more questions, Six?
I don't have any more questions. I'm kind of just like looking at chat at this point because all the questions I had written down we're kind of used up. Yeah, so I'm just looking at chat right now, seeing if there's like any questions. Boger, I'm sure we could just pull up questions from our chat at this point.
Yeah. Orisa has fall off now on the projectile.
Yes, Orisa
Yeah,
does.
so down. Okay. Are there any changes to the Roadhog ult?
No changes to the ult.
Okay.
No, I mean you can throw a pig pen during it now if you want, right?
Yeah.
But no big changes there to the ult.
How does Pigpen and ult work together? Do they travel slower when they're getting booed by the ult, or this is not affected at all? So you place Pigpen, then you ult, and you shoot. Do they like travel slower?
It's not really something you'd be kind of like using as a combo in any way.
Yeah, just
No.
one shot combo. That was what
Yeah.
I was wondering. All right.
If anything, to be, they get hit up a little bit into the air when the first trigger goes off, you can hook, and then you can go into ult a bit more effectively. Yeah.
Does the trap like Pigpen, does it change with the skin, or is that just like it's like Junkrat trap? I think Junkrat trap is kind of like it's just always one look. Does it change with the skin or no?
That's something we'll be looking at. I think at least what's important to us is that the enemy read stays pretty similar. So you'll still be seeing that domed metallic read, but maybe for Roadhog, he might see something different, right? His allies and enemies will probably see some similar things, but Roadhog may see something that does get some cosmetic that plays into whatever theme the new skin might be messing around with.
All right.
But at the moment, it's just the same across. But any new skins, we'll take a look at that.
Okay.
I have a question for slows. For May slow plus Pigpen slow, does it stack, or how does it work? And that's gonna be my last question. Then Six can ask whatever he wants.
They should stack, I believe.
So they stack. So it's like 40
but there's
and
there's
80%.
probably an upper limit on it.
Okay, there's a cap. All right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I totally missed the question that you guys were asking, and it kind of sounds similar to this question that I'm about to ask. So,
we asked if slow stack.
Oh, okay, that was the exact question that I just read. So good thing I got confirmation there. Okay, so
one thing we saw people do in playtest actually was they put the Pigpen like in the Junkrat trap. So it's like this AOE that you're taking damage and you're also trapped to. I don't know how effective that actually is.
I don't think it's effective. I'll be honest.
I don't think so.
Can you one shot that way? No, it doesn't do enough damage.
Not
100
enough
from
damage.
trap, and then okay,
Yeah.
Funny. Can you hide Junkrat trap with Pigpen and vice versa? Like, I know it's a weird question, but for example, because trap has a model on the ground, and then Pigpen, if you place it in the trap, can you hide the Pigpen in the trap?
No, it's still gonna show the dome. I think one thing we saw like early on, one of the things we were looking at was like with health packs. There's visibility there that gets a little obfuscated, right? So, but I don't think it's the most effective place to put them because usually those are fairly out of the way, right?
Yeah. It was just a silly question. Anyways, OU6.
All right, I see some people asking like the trap arming speed, like when you set it, like how long does it take to deploy? Is it instantly or?
I think it's 1.5 seconds. It's one of those. So I believe so. Taking a look at, but it's one of those things where we had it very quick early, and what happens is you end up just throwing it at people's feet in combat, right? And it's not necessarily what we want from the gameplay. We want it to be this sort of thing you're setting up. You can still, though, say you're chasing someone, you can possibly throw it behind them, or someone's going to come around a corner, you can kind of throw it there, and you can anticipate a little bit. But we initially had it like I think much less, and it was just people were just using it mid combat, just throwing it at the ground and then just shooting. It's not really a trap at that point, right?
Okay, so you can't really like if you're about to die, you can't just like throw the trap and just like die, or can the trap still be activated after you die as Hog?
It can be activated after you die.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it will stay.
Okay. I am just still looking at questions right now. Oh right, how easy is it to break? You did mention Junkrat trap had 100 HP.
No more edge.
Is it still 100 HP?
Yeah, it's 100 HP. So it's not too difficult. 2 shots for a lot of the cast.
Okay, I have a good one. I know I said last one, but it's a really good one. Does Pigpen still get activated when Fortified Orison walks over it, or does it break like Junkrat Trap?
Believe it should have the same behavior.
So does it break without activating, or does it activate? Like, because it's Junkrat Trap doesn't have, AoE damage or anything, just traps.
Yeah, I know we were looking at this the other day with Zarya, because Zarya won't activate the trap if there's a bubbled characters don't activate the trap,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I'll double check on the Orisa one.
All right.
During your whole hog, are you able to throw down the trap? Like you're able to use take? Okay, cool.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Okay. Well, at this point, I think I'm all out of questions, so I'm just reading from chats.
I think I'm also out of questions. I think we asked most of the important questions.
Yeah.
And I think the rest we're gonna see it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Is there gonna be any gameplay shown before tomorrow? Anywhere?
I hope so. Well, at least I
Okay.
know. Like, we'll be following everyone. Tomorrow, be watching your streams and seeing what you do with Roadhog. I think it's been a long time. Coming where Roadhog hasn't been in the spotlight for quite a while. So we're excited to finally give him the tools he needs to be effective again.
I'm excited for every game to be Roadhog. It's gonna be fun.
It's like this 2-week period of Roadhog, and then there'll be, I'm sure, a lot of Malga games once Season 8 launches as well.
Right.
Yeah. It will be exciting. Roadhog Rework into Malga. That'll be fun.
I wonder how those two are going to interact with each other. Like
it can be they're very deadly when they're up close to each other. I think Malga can hold down on both guns fairly effectively against Roadhog, but Roadhog being able to displace Malga is kind of the thing that's really good there too. Like if Malga's cut off from his team, he sometimes needs some of that healing, right?
Yeah, I also think Take a Breather being a resource is just objectively better than like Cardiac Overdrive. Like I think it might just give Hog the better edge in the matchup generally. I mean, obviously it depends on the whole team comps, the whole maps. There's a lot of variables, but with it being a resource and a 1-second cooldown, I could see it being more suitable for Hog. But I guess we'll find out when the Malga releases.
Yeah, yes? I think with Cardiac Overdrive, it'll be interesting to see once the comps start building around that. A lot of times what we've seen so far is like players using it for themselves, which is great, but once we have comps that are built around that window of time, that's when we'll really see the power of that ability in particular, right? Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Well,
thank you so much, Alec.
Thank you for all the questions.
I'm really excited about it. This will be really fun.
Thank you for all the feedback during the process, and we'll be looking for more feedback, obviously, when this goes live tomorrow.
Yeah.
And seeing how Roadhog does.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I'm
Sweet.
excited to see how he does as well. Thank you so much. Appreciate
Thank you so much.
Have a nice day.
Appreciate it, man.
Take it easy.
Bye.
Later.
Bye.